All right, time for another DraftPhysics.com. DebatePhysics.com also, but just so few people willing to engage in anything called a debate or even a discussion. So there's a channel called Science Discussed with a physicist, David Broadway, who is published in some kind of journals. But anyway, it's all obscure quantum crap, so yeah, unfortunately it's not any like real science. But anyway, did a video on time. It's just really not very good, and just remind you of the fact that Wikipedia is evil, and you can't discuss anything there either, and it's all quite bad. Science will not allow discussion. Science is afraid of discussion because, frankly, the science is kind of just garbage. All right. So anyway, to the video. I'm not going to pretend to be nice and pretend to all this. I'll try to be reasonably polite, but I just find it obnoxious. The title's clickbait and obnoxious. Everyone is wrong about time. I mean, what does that even mean? Everyone is wrong? There's only two ways you can understand time. It's either some silly dimension where we can travel there if we want. Any place in time is a place somewhere. Somehow time is a place. Or you believe, no, time is just a fact that there's stuff in the universe that's going slower than instantaneous. And if something goes slower than instantaneous, you have to have time to do that. You can't go slower than instantaneous without creating time. So yeah, the fact that the universe isn't an instantaneous, okay, the fact that things don't just jump from place to place and they have to travel there and it takes time to get there, that's why there's time. But other than that, that's all time is. It's just a consequence of it being a slow verse. So you either believe in a magical verse or a slow verse. But that's it. There's nothing else you can get right or wrong about time. You either think it's some kind of wooey dimension, or you understand it's just a function. It's just a consequence of the fact that it takes time for things to travel distance. Period. So this is just everyone is wrong. Bullshit. Why even make a video? Everybody's wrong. Well, are you wrong too then? What is that? You're going to prove us all wrong? I mean, it's just, you can't do anything. You can't do any reasoning on that title and do anything good. It just creates it's a nonsense. Yeah.
Immutable and unmalleable property of the universe.
So he's telling us something about it. So, okay, it's unmutable and unmalleable and blah, blah, blah. And yes, it appears to be all really quite consistent. But the fact is, if somebody did malleate it, we couldn't frickin' perceive it, because if it malleates it in certain ways, we wouldn't know the difference. So if there was some kind of God and he decided to just make 10 seconds, 10 hours, and then everything else changed relative to that appropriately, we wouldn't tell the difference. We wouldn't make any difference to us, because we're just counting sequences of events.
Or is it? If you think you understand what time is, you're wrong. Even
so what the hell is that? What the hell is that? I mean, how dare you almost? How dare you? That's such a stupid statement. And then he has this fake picture, so go Google an image of scientists looking concerned. And obviously none of these people are scientists. It's just, oh, please, spare me, huh?
Scientists can't agree on what time is.
All right, what scientists are you talking about? They seem to all agree that it's a wooey fourth dimension. I think the vast majority of them are going to say it's some sort of thing that's bent in a geodesic somewhere. So even that's bullshit.
There are some things that we do know about time, but what we do know is contradictory. Why?
All this jump cutty style shit. Some of that is clearly useful, but in a physics video, come on. People interested in physics should really be able to handle it a little bit rawer and like honest and straight.
Why is time and space different? What is the origin of time? And is time even real?
So what's the point? Is it real? Yes, things are really moving slowly. They're really not moving instantaneously, so I guess time is as real as it gets. Oh, shit.
Let's discuss what we do know so you can understand it.
Shit. So he's talking like this is a discussion when there's no discussion here. Discussion involves somebody says something and somebody else says something and then they say something back. It's an interaction, a discussion. A discussion is not you say it, I say fuck you, and that's the end of the discussion. No, that's not a discussion. I say something preposterous like you're wrong. Okay, I don't give any real interesting reasoning why you're wrong. I just say it. And that's not a discussion. So if you really have an interest in a discussion, I like to do that. Okay. I like to discuss whether it takes 100 times the fuel to spin a motor 10 times as fast. I'd like to discuss that.
All forced to trudge along a singular direction of time, forever moving forward, with no agency to change our course.
I mean, it's just change it to what? I mean, it's just, again, it's just such a denial of the fact that it's obviously a sequence of events. I mean, an event can't, it has to go in the order. Okay, you have to step down the staircase or step up the staircase. There's no jumping to stairs.
Why is this true? Why can't we go backwards through time? Why can't we speed up or slow down time? They're all valid questions, but
no, they're ludicrous and silly questions because we know it's just a fact of the way the universe functions. You can't run evolution backwards. You can't run a volcano backwards. You can't run anything backwards. It's just ludicrous and stupid. Volcanoes do not depressurize by some magical function. You know, come on. They have to explode.
Are the answers satisfactory? One answer is that time is not even real. But what does it even mean? It certainly doesn't make time less confusing. But what do we know?
So why all this woo? Why all this making something so simple so fucking complicated? Why are you making something so simple complicated? Things move slow. Slow-averse. Really easy. It's like push-averse. Really easy. No pulls, just pushes.
Our fascination with time isn't new. In ancient times...
your fascination, our fascination. I'm not fascinated. It was never fascinating. I never even for a moment in my life, I can honestly say, I never for a moment in my life ever contemplated any kind of idea that I'm going to be jumping to places in time. Not going to happen.
Sometimes we use gods to explain the passage of time and moments in our lives. Many people have tried to tackle the concept of time in a way that doesn't invoke pagan gods. For example, ancient Greek philosophers toyed with the concept of time as an experience.
Oh, it's just so disgusting. Of course, it's an experience, just like your computer processor has to go through the bits in sequence. Your brain goes through bits in sequence. Yeah, it's the obligation. Oh, damn it.
Other than something fundamental to the universe. Aristotle defines time as a number of change with respect to the before and after.
Well, there's obviously just the past and there's and the future, and the present is, microscopic. So, in truth. So what again? Okay, interesting for about that long, and that's about it. Okay, I mean, it's just not much of a subject. Okay, there's past and there's to be. There was and there will be. That's all there are. There was and there will be. Okay, so what? Moving on, please.
Which means that changes in the universe cause time. He also infers that...
So again, they cause time. No, it's just a symptom of them existing. So to say that a cold causes coughs, well, it's a little more complicated than that simple statement. There's the whole allergic reaction and the creation of the damn whatever, mucuses and the white blood cells and the all the other crap that goes with it, the allergy part.
Time is only a valid concept if beings are present to observe it, and it doesn't...
Oh, just, So what tiny percentage of human beings think this observation thing means anything? That humans have to observe the moon or the moon disappears. If some human somewhere isn't looking at it somewhere, all of a sudden it just poofs out of existence. What are there, 4 people that believe that?
Exist otherwise. Maybe we don't have so much hubris in our view of time more recently, but describing time...
I mean, it's almost disgusting that these physicists use the word hubris when they haven't proven anything. It's all just a religion. I mean, it's all just a bunch of statements they make about what is. There are quarks, there are muons, there are antiparticles. Oh, says you, with almost no indicative evidence. The amount of evidence is so thin and weak.
Time as a number that counts change is not that different from some modern views on time. This idea of time persisted until Isaac Newton came up with a better theory.
Oh, this is just nonsense. Newton didn't pay any attention to the concept of time beyond just saying, like space, it just is.
He invented the idea that time has nothing to do with change, but instead is always moving forward, irrespective if something changes.
Yeah, it's just like space exists. The places in space exist, whether something's in the place or not. It doesn't matter. If something's occupying the space, fine. If nothing occupies the space, fine. But it's a place in space. So again, he spent no time at all on this subject because it's not a subject. Time isn't meaningful. Velocities are meaningful. Time isn't. Alright, so I'll pause this commercial crap. Ew, annoying. The kind you can't click out of.
It's likely how you think of time in a Newtonian fashion. The time...
And so, yeah, and it's perfectly rational and perfectly reasonable to say time isn't very interesting. Just really isn't. I get it. Sequence of events. I'm caught up in a sequence of events. They're done, finished.
Is a moving element of reality that maintains the idea of causality. We will find out later that even causality isn't safe.
So it's just such baby talk. I mean, you're not going to find out, but you're not going to show any real evidence that any of this wooey crap exists. There's no entanglements, there's no superpositions, there's no decoherence, there's no popping in and out of existence. All of it is just made up fable.
And that this view of time is just not true. But we'll get back to this.
Oh yeah, first we'll talk a bunch of mush and then we'll finally get to the subject. Oh, fine. Great.
First, we need to talk about Einstein and how he changed how we understand time completely.
Yeah, he didn't do anything except get Eddington to do a stupid experiment that he didn't do well at all, that he said in his own journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results because I got 10% of the data quality I was hoping for. And then he gets a New York Times headline anyway. So Einstein's theory wasn't going anywhere. It had no steam. It had no momentum. And the only thing that made it was a fake experiment, frankly, that if they had done the experiment 2 years earlier, Einstein's answer would have been wrong if they got the same answer. If they got the same answer Eddington got, and they got it 2 years earlier, Einstein would have been proven wrong.
We finally got a hint into the nature of time when Einstein formulated his theories of special and general relativity.
Right, these little paragraph theories, let's just understand the original papers were not involved explanations of anything, and they didn't come with any formulas, and blah, 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 blah. But it's stupid. This is a stupid diagram of reality, okay? We already know that gravity is a convergence in all directions, that the people on the bottom of the earth right now, my bottom, are experiencing exactly the same thing I'm experiencing, that it's not a frickin' tablecloth with a dent in it. All right, it's not a dented geodesic, okay? It's a vacuum cleaner, and more specifically, it clearly illustrates exactly what an external pressure would look like. An external pressure pushing matter together, and it's spherical because it's pushing it evenly. Duh.
Einstein gave us 2 key insights into how time works on a grand scale. The first was that time is relative, which means that the flow of time is...
I mean, it's just too silly, okay? The click of a clock is the same everywhere in the universe. There's a clock ticking 1 second intervals, you could argue. And you don't change any of that. That's why it takes billions of years for photons to get here. Okay, it's because they have to travel the whole distance, every bit of it, while a clock is ticking, real seconds. I mean, it's just such nonsense.
Not the same for everyone in the universe.
Bullshit. So you're never going to prove that it's a different time on Jupiter right now. That Jupiter doesn't know what time it is. And that it isn't counting seconds exactly the same way we're counting seconds. And that the further away I go in the universe, their clocks are all saying the same second is the same second. Seconds haven't changed at all. It's not some other year there. It's the same exact year it is here.
The second was...
It just takes time for information to get to us. So we don't get to see something as it is. We see it as it was. So what? Perfectly understandable.
Time and space can bend.
All right, so whatever. It's just stupid. It's a stupid illustration. Again, the only thing you know is that there's a gravitational force that's basically sucking things in. All right. And you could argue that the reason why that's happening is because the Earth is consuming energy that goes in, and the energy that comes out is a little weaker than the energy that went in. Okay, because the Earth has used some of it to create magma, for example.
Two theories experimentally confirmed again and again.
No. So all this nonsense about all these experiments, none of these experiments have anything to do with actually show me evidence. So there's no show me evidence here. There's just talk about how, well, it impressed you. Doesn't, okay, so it's not show me. And again, this is a two-dimensional diagram. It's a three-dimensional universe. It relies actually on gravity in the sense that you're using gravity to illustrate gravity, which is sort of a bogus. And if you drew it in 3 dimensions, it would look like a bunch of lines coming into this object, the sun in this case. Just a bunch of lines of force going straight lines of force going right into the Earth, just like the same way the light is produced. It's the same inverse square law. Photons do exactly what gravity does. Same exact inverse square law. Just think of photons in reverse.
I founded on the idea that time is a dimension just like space. This is in direct contradiction to how time is viewed in quantum mechanics, and I will...
Oh, so there's no point. I mean, quantum mechanics doesn't even view time, so time is irrelevant to quantum mechanics. Again, quantum mechanics just cares about velocities.
Get to this point, but for now, what does it mean that time is a dimension? Einstein
doesn't mean a damn thing. It's silly. Dimensions have rules. You can't call it a dimension. The 3 dimensions have rules, okay? Right angles. Once you have 3 lines, you've used up all the possible right angles. You can't make a new line that has a right angle to the other 3 lines. So you're done. You have 3 dimensions, 3 spatial dimensions. That's all there are. You want to call time something else, call it something else, but don't call it a dimension. It is not a spatial dimension.
Postulated that space and time are fundamentally linked and form a combined space-time, where there are 4 dimensions, with the 4th being time.
Which is nonsense. So again, it's just silly. It's a place for you to take the motion in 3 dimensions and slide it into a fake place. It's just sweeping data under the rug. It's a non-existent, non-real dimension.
Time is still unique in this definition because we can only move in one direction in time, but in any direction in space. The maths itself doesn't really prevent us from moving backwards through time, but we get to really...
Yeah, but you do it anyway, right? And so Feynman played with all that and came up with the silly idea that you have an event in the future, that you borrow money from the future, okay, to pay your bills, and then you pay it back in the future. I mean, it's just too silly. Silly nonsense. Talking about how electrons create photons and do this and do that, and then start talking about how, well, it jumps to the future, gets the energy, brings it back to the past, okay, does the event, and then gives back the energy in the future. Oh, bullshit, it does.
find a way to break this paradigm, despite having many theories. One way to think of Einstein's view on time is to imagine space as a sheet of paper. Then
a big, fake, phony, false impression. When they illustrate it with a piece of spandex or something, it doesn't really work because there's enough friction to create phenomenon that gravity doesn't produce. From the real perspective, orbits are complicated. You can't enter into an orbit from the external environment around an object unless something reduces your speed. You can't do it. If you go in with a speed, you can't change your speed. You can't add any thrust or change your speed. You'll just fly out again or you crash. That's all you do. You don't go into orbits. You fly out or you crash. So unless you hit something somewhere to change your speed, you're not going to be in an orbit.
This space sheet is moving along a time axis, and that is the passage of time. But it goes beyond this because both space and time bend due to gravity and moving very fast. So
due to gravity, a magical force that's supposed to be the consequence of this stupid bending. The bending's supposed to be an explanation for gravity. You're not supposed to be saying due to gravity. The bending is supposed to be the cause of the gravity. So how can it be due to gravity? So you can't even get this even a little bit right. Reasonable. I suppose I should interject with, do you think it takes 100 times the fuel to go 10 times as fast? To spin a motor 10 times as fast, do you think it takes 100 times the wattage? Do you really think so? Physics says so.
Space sheet is all dinted and wavy, and the axis of time is not a singular axis. Instead, every single point in space, and the object that is in it has a different...
So I showed you two-dimensional model, but it's a three-dimensional universe, so yeah, it's completely not applicable, and it's completely, deceptive and illusionary, and really doesn't have anything to do with the truth, because the truth is it's a bunch of straight lines moving into the gravitational body, and you cross the straight lines, and they pull... Okay, it indicates how much you've been pushed into the object. How many lines you cross decides how much you got pushed.
Time vector for
these are no ordinary.
You experience on the ground is different to the time someone is experiencing on a plane. Now,
so he says so. So again, just say so. Bullshit. And the fact is what do you mean by different? Oh, that's right. The time on the ground is actually slower than the clock on the plane. And then the satellite's going even faster. Its clock is going faster. Even though it's moving with a high velocity, its clock is going faster, not slower, because we're moving faster, because we're going up and down in gravity. So they won't even tell that part of the story accurately. The plane actually has less time dilation than the Earthling. The Earthling has the maximum amount of time dilation because the Earthling is in the heaviest and strongest gravity, which means the Earthling on the ground is oscillating a lot more. It's in a higher force, more pushing into the Earth, more pushing back up.
This is not just some unmeasurable amount. Navigation systems have to take into consideration this time difference.
So again, there's no time difference. There's a clock irregularity. So the simple truth is they only do these experiments with atomic clocks. And the fact is atomic clocks are vulnerable to being affected by velocity. So if you put let's say you put a radioactive isotope in a centrifuge, I bet you can slow down its decay. That's all that's going to be proven here eventually, is that velocity retards decay of an isotope. Just like adding, crowding isotopes increases the decay speed, you can do other things to retard the decay speed. Obviously, atomic clocks are not indestructible. There's lots of ways you can destroy how it counts time. You can expose it to more radiation, for example.
commercial flights. And GPS only works when you include time dilation predicted by both.
Okay, so predicted but not really calculated. So, people who actually work in doing the actual satellite adjustments and all of that kind of crap have testified that they don't use Einstein's formula. They just turn the dial until the two times match. They just make a manual adjustment.
Special and general relativity. There are a lot of predictions that we can make using relativity.
So again, bull crap. There's no predictions that have anything to do with anything real. They're just predicting crap like antiparticles or some other wooey gremlin shit. They're going to tell us where Sasquatch is right now. That's their prediction. Of course, he's invisible, so we won't be able to go test the prediction.
Ways that we can test it. As far as we can tell, Einstein's theories are extremely good.
Oh, yeah, it's bullshit. So again, it's bullshit. They'll never show you a picture of any of this. Never show you a picture of a quark. They won't show you anything. The only thing you get for a positron is a 1956 photograph of a line going in a direction. They don't have an image of a box full of positrons. It's just nonsense.
But that's not the whole story, unfortunately. For starters, it leaves a lot to be desired. It doesn't explain why time exists, and why we can only move forward in time.
Alright, so you're going to try to explain why there's a universe, and that's just a waste of everybody's time. So obviously, whatever came with the universe, the idea of matter and force, obviously time came along because the force and the matter weren't moving fast enough to do without time. So because nothing moved instantaneously, or everything didn't move instantaneously, some stuff was moving slower than instantaneously, that's why we have time. But really, you're going to tell us why there's a universe. Oh, sure you are. That, I'm sure, it will be a wrong answer.
But we have some theories about this, and I'll get back to them. First, we need to discuss the time elephant in the room, quantum mechanics. The biggest problem in physics is that our understanding of the universe on a grand scale...
No, the problem between quantum mechanics and relativity is that relativity makes gravity not a real force. And so it just doesn't fit, because quantum mechanics doesn't say that charge is a bent geodesic. Now, if they said charge was a bent geodesic, well, then you get away with it. You could have some compatibility. But it doesn't say that. It recognizes the existence of photons, that there is energy creating the phenomenon of charge. It isn't just magic.
Disagrees with our understanding of the universe on a small scale. In quantum mechanics, time is not a dimension. Instead, it is a smooth, continuous property that can track the...
No, it's nothing. And velocity is everything. And they completely exaggerate the meaning of velocity because they square it, which was for no good reason. Just absolutely no good reason to square a velocity. It's not a squareable object. You can't make an acre of velocity. Okay, it's not a squareable dimensional object. It's just one thing, a line with a length telling you how much velocity there is, and that's it. You can't make a square of it, and you can't make a cube of it.
Order of events. Unlike everything else in quantum mechanics, time is not quantized. While some theories do predict and use quantized time with a particle.
It doesn't make any sense that it's not quantized. It's that you can't quantize it because it is not a particle of time. Time doesn't come in particles. Time doesn't come in clumps. Time doesn't, we clump it. All right? And that's the simple truth. But the truth is that works perfect. Even if there was nothing other than seconds, and there was no half second, and there was no quarter second, the frame rate would be kind of sloppy of the universe. I mean, things would go from here to here. Look at they jumped there magically. But we would know, oh no, that's just because, there's no frames. We can't see the frames in between. But we'd still know there was time.
We'll call it a chronon. For most quantum mechanics, time is not a quantized quantity. Furthermore, we have yet to find a need to quantize time to explain any observation. So time in quantum mechanics behaves more like Newtonian time time with the small addition of special relativity.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just Newtonian time. No, just time as just a function, the end. Not that interesting. I mean, Newton didn't really add anything on the subject of time. That's the simple truth, right? Everybody knew already what it was. It's a sequence of events. The end. Not that complicated. Things happen sequentially, and they're slow. So it's a slower verse, and it's sequential. All right. You don't need Newton to be able to observe that. Newton doesn't need to lead you there. Okay, it's really easy to get there, all on your own.
That is, we don't include curved space-time, but we do include the change in space and time from something moving very fast, which in quantum mechanics is quite commonplace. But if only time was that simple in quantum mechanics, something very strange.
All right, so whatever. So again, quantum mechanics is complete nonsense. They didn't measure the electron's mass right because they used mv squared. Everything they've done to physics, they just ruined it with this stupid v squared idea. It's toxic to the reality. Momentum runs the universe. That's all there is. There's little masses and there's big masses. And frankly, you can convert energy from a lot of little masses moving fast. You can convert that into a big mass moving slow. One atom moving 1,000 miles an hour, same difference to the universe, same ability to hurt or damage the universe as 1,000 atoms moving 1 mile an hour. Same thing. Momentum is all there is. It's a momentiverse.
Change happens that can allow us to break causality. Causality makes complete sense to us. The classical and probably never happened story.
I never thought as a kid.
Oh, fuck. Jesus. Such a waste of time.
On Newton's head, and this caused him to think and formulate the idea of gravity. We would never say that Newton formulating the idea of gravity caused an apple to fall on his head. Now, despite the clear flaw and actual cause there, we have an understanding of the order of events and that these events can't have their order reversed. Well, it turns out that in quantum mechanics, that may not be true, and we have experiments to demonstrate it.
No, they really don't have any experiments to demonstrate. And the fact is you can reverse some events. But some events you can't. So you're never going to reverse a volcano, for example. You're not going to reverse a flood. You're not going to reverse a lot of things. Not possible to make the water go back into the cloud.
Quantum entanglement is a very strange idea, but it is a fundamental component of quantum mechanics.
And it's a completely cause and effect. The cause is your complete butchering of something as simple as the slit experiments, where you've turned something very simple, which is surfaces break photons, and then surfaces, you can take the pieces and cast them on a surface and put them back in phase. So you can break their phase with a surface, and you can put them back on in phase. So basically, because they misinterpreted the simple slit experiments and they didn't realize it's the 2-surface experiment or the 4-surface experiment, not the single slit and the double slit, that the surfaces are essentially point sources, the math works perfectly. That simple explanation gets rid of all the wave mechanics, gets rid of all the entanglement, gets rid of all the superpositions, gets rid of all the need to create a wooey explanation for any of this stuff.
When particles are entangled, they can do a whole lot of things that are not intuitive to us at all.
Nah, they can't do any of it. They can't video any of it. It's all bullshit. It's all speculation, and that's all it is. They made up a story to explain it, and they might as well use the words pixies and gremlins and Sasquatch.
And this is the foundation of quantum mechanics.
Right, so the foundation is pixie dust.
But for this discussion, the important aspect that you need to understand is that
There's a discussion here somewhere. You're just telling us what we must believe. Oh, that's called discussion. Okay.
2 or more particles can have a non-definite future. We can...
Oh, yeah, this is, it's just so bad. You're going to break determinism. Something so obvious. And you're just going to pretend I can break it with my magical quantum wand. Oh, pathetic.
Not know enough information about the particles to make an absolute prediction about their future. Instead, we need...
Yeah, so instead we'll just make up some kind of crappy little story. We'll just make up a little fairy tale about, dwarves living in the forest.
To calculate the probability of a certain future occurring. Now, there are some intense philosophical arguments about what this means. But
this guy's inflection is really kind of annoying because he's always trying to emphasize something that doesn't really need to be emphasized.
Let's ignore these for this discussion. Because
that's not a discussion, it's a lecture, and it sucks. Yeah, there you go. I don't like it very much. Alright, let's see if we can get this over with.
Because the particles are in this funky state, we can act on them and get strange results. We can interact with one particle with, say, action A, and then do action B. But we can do the opposite with the other particle.
So that was some kind of Alice and Bob thing, so that has to do with the quantum erasers and all kinds of other nonsense that just is just that. We have a filter that does this, does this, because Stern Gerlach, an experiment we did on atoms. We shot atoms, through an obstacle course, and we called that electron spin. So what the atoms did was telling us what the electron spin was. So that's how much nonsense this is. They didn't test electrons. They tested entire atomic isotopes. Ions, sorry, not isotopes.
Now the quantum entangled particles are in a causal superposition. It is not clear which action occurred first.
No, whatever. The superposition is supposed to be instantaneous ESP, so there isn't a first.
This might seem like a rather contrived experiment.
Yes, it's all contrived. That's right. It's contrived, it's rubbish, it's nonsense, it's a bunch of woo. You've done all this bizarre speculating and creating all this, you have a very simple event, and they've turned it into a complicated event, because they're saying, well, there's really a gremlin, and the gremlin turns into a pixie, and then the pixie turns into a hobgoblin, and then the hobgoblin moves over and gets married to, and it's just a pile of nonsense, and it's really something very simple. A simple thing happens and they're turning it into a big complicated pile of mush. The squirrel runs up the tree and, all of a sudden we have to believe in Sasquatch.
And it is, but the point is that this is even possible in quantum mechanics. And it likely occurs in nature in some capacity. The consequences of not having definite causes.
So just let me say, as soon as they bring up nature, you say to yourself, well, wait a minute. Evolution finds a way, right? And so if there was this way we could communicate instantaneously, nature would find a way to exploit it. Clearly it hasn't.
This scale are certainly not clear, but it is fascinating and confusing that it is even possible.
So again, it's not even possible, just like it doesn't take 100 times the fuel to spin a motor 10 times as fast. It doesn't happen. Your physics is a fable. It's fake. It's phony. It's not real. The bullet doesn't have 1,000 times the energy of the recoiling gun. Both of them have the same capacity to move a spaceship in space, proving it's about momentum, not anything called kinetic energy, and not a velocity squared. The whole thing is a pile of crap built on garbage. It's fables built on nonsense. You might as well tell me about talking fish.
Quantum mechanics and general relativity disagree, but maybe we can...
Garbage against garbage. Yeah, the great debate between garbage and garbage. Giant douche and shit sandwich. Neither one of them is the truth.
And for something about what time is, from which theory is more accurate than the other. And only things are that easy.
It is that easy. It's called evidence. And when you have a tiny shred of it, you basically say, I guess I better keep my mouth shut. All right? You don't make videos telling people what they must believe when you don't have the goods. You don't have evidence that a car going 100 miles an hour creates twice the heat or damage than a car, 4 times the heat and damage than a car going 50. You don't have any evidence of that crap. Yet you'll preach it over and over. What the fuck? I didn't unpause. I don't know what the fuck happened. I was just talking about the TikTok commercial about the drunk driver. Did you hear any of that? It's just such bullshit. My poor son. Oh, no. The world's a better place without your reckless asshole son.
Excellent predictions that match experiments to such a high...
I mean, it's just such a... This is the biggest canard, right? So they have a wrong way of measuring something, okay? And so they predict a fake result, and then they do the experiment and use the stupid math that's wrong and confirm their fake result. Well, of course you confirmed it, all right? So... But you're getting the wrong answer. So this goes to the measuring of the electron, how many places they're going to measure it by. And it's garbage in, garbage out. Your prediction is completely based on a broken formula. Then you use the broken formula to create your experiment. Your experiment isn't immune to your broken formula. You're using it to tell you what the experiment says. And it's not what the experiment says. And if you used momentum, you would have got the right answer. You'd get the right answer for how heavy your electron is if you measured its momentum, not its kinetic energy. Damn, I don't have to explain this to physicists. Shit.
A degree of accuracy, it is really hard to compare them, particularly given that most of the comparisons are actually limited by the experiments themselves rather than the theory.
The theory is shit, okay? It's a stupid model. You can't draw it. It's non-mechanical. It's so non-mechanical you can't draw it. All right? And then the experiments are full of bullshit where they tell you what a beam splitter's doing. When they don't have a clue. They tell you they're creating a single photon when no, you're not. You're just putting a bunch of dark shields in front of the light and forcing the light go through a bunch of slit experiments. You're causing the light to scatter all over the place. You're not creating a single photon.
Physicists are looking everywhere for a theory that will merge both general relativity and quantum mechanics. Strings.
So shit and poo, and you will make, whatever.
Loops, quantum gravity, these are just some of the suggestions. But none of them are particularly compelling so far.
Right, you're all religious kooks, and you just keep trying to invent holy ghosts, and you put a silly hat on the holy ghost. Well, maybe he wears a trumper hat. Maybe he, maybe has a wand, a little metal wand, and when he moves the wand, a photon is created. You're just making up silly little gingerbread house bullshit.
Some people suggested that time is not real, but this is where the normal use of real is a little different. In this context, scientists mean that time is an emergent property.
I mean, we're sitting here, actually you're actually living alive, and you're conscious of it, and you can see your materiality, you can see and people are having conversations about how it's not real. Oh, fuck. I mean, every word in our vocabulary they have to break.
Than a fundamental one. Normally, this is used to describe that the time emerged from the Big Bang event, and the direction of time is defined due to the Big Bang itself. But this is not very satisfactory. Until we find a good theory that combines both general relativity and quantum mechanics, we likely won't understand the nature of time.
This is just, it's the worst aspect of physics is even dealing with this creation science crap. The universe gets more elemental and simpler. That's the mechanical systems. Everything is built on a process. First, you had to have abiogenesis before you have, living things and all of that stuff. You have to go, and it gets simpler and simpler and simpler. And the fact is that whatever caused the universe, it's not going to be any good reason. It's not going to be any fancy reason. It's just going to be some mechanical reason.
But we do have some very interesting theories on why time is always moving forward. Some scientists believe that...
it's just so stupid. It's a symptom of cause and effect at a slow speed. Period. There's nothing else to understand.
Time exists as a direct consequence of entropy, and the trend that the universe is constantly trying to increase disorder. But
so that's more nonsense, okay? Because clearly the universe is having no problem creating order. It has no problem creating galaxies, suns, Earths. It's having no problem taking asteroids and turning them into planets. It doesn't have a problem doing any of this stuff. It explodes, supernova explodes, and what happens? A few milliseconds, a few seconds after it explodes, what happens? Everything starts consolidating. So this whole story that the universe doesn't know how to clump things is just idiotic.
the question that this raises is, what is the driving force behind this? A more compelling argument is that quantum mechanics is actually responsible for time moving forward.
Oh, this is worse than listening to a minister. This is such a pile of shit.
What do I mean by this? Quantum mechanics has a level of uncertainty about it. The present is a snapshot of a quantum uncertain world. We can't know.
So again, it's just disgusting. And nobody said this back in the 60s when I grew up. I mean, this was not a conversation. Nobody was afraid of this break determinism shit. Everybody was sort of talking about the idea that, yes, you could, just because frame rate was starting to be understood, that you could take the frames and you can understand that you can make these infinitesimally small frames of stop action. You could have a stop action video of the universe and everything was mechanically sound. There was no woo, there was no poof. There was just a mechanical movement of these checkers on the board. And there wasn't any checker that just magically showed up, and there wasn't some checker somewhere else that magically disappeared. And this is all in the last 20 years that this frickin' woo version of the religion has showed up.
What will happen? Because quantum mechanics doesn't allow that. And therefore, we can't predict the future. The past, on the other hand, is a result of this quantum world collapsing and becoming a classical one. That is...
Oh, it's so stupid. So the past is classical and the future isn't. I mean, that's just such a nonsense. It's not even consistent. Even Susskind concedes that the forward part is just as reliable as the backward part.
The past is a definite rather than a probabilistic world. This would imply that we can only exist within the quantum mechanical present. Therefore, a consequence of this theory is that the past no longer exists, at least for us. So, what I mean by this is...
duh. I mean, to even have a comment about how the past doesn't exist. Yes, the point where I didn't understand 2 + 2 = 4, that time is gone, okay, and now I'm stuck with the knowledge that 2 + 2 = 4, and I can't go back, and I can't relive, and I can't in any way become what I was, because now I'm something different. Something pokes my eye out. My eye is now poked out. I cannot visit the past and have my eye back. Fuck this bullshit.
That time is not a dimension, and that we can't just move along it. Instead, the only real thing is the quantum present.
Oh, the quantum. It's just, more nonsense. The future will be just as real. You just have to wait for the arrangement of the future. The future is just an arrangement of the present. The present gets rearranged and the same materials are used and we see them in the future. Every atom I have has been somewhere. It was here millions of years ago on Earth. It was part of dinosaurs and part of plants and part of every single atom was doing something 1,000,000 years ago. It had a life 1,000,000 years ago. I mean, this is all such crap.
And our perception of time is just a result of our memory of a classical past and our uncontrollable persistence.
Now, our memory of it is irrelevant. So again, this is like saying the moon doesn't exist unless we look at it. I mean, it's just such bullshit. Our memories don't mean a goddamn thing. The dinosaurs really existed. We do not have to remember them, okay? Because we didn't see them in the first place. So, but we can reconstruct the world they existed in, and we can know they did exist. This is just, it's just so disgusting. On the very off chance that this guy's actually watching this video, do you really believe, okay, that 4 pounds dropped 1 foot is the same impact energy as 1 pound dropped 4 feet? Do you really believe that? That it weighs the same? That it hits a scale and it puts the same energy into the scale? Shit. I mean, you really believe that 2 units of gravitational force, 2 units of 9.8 equals 4 units of energy? Come on.
In a quantum present. What about time travel? Is it possible? And if so, in what capacity? It depends on your interpretation of time. If you believe in Einstein's general relativity, then in principle, time travel is possible. It often involves extremely large amounts of energy or even negative energy.
I mean, it's just silly because all you're really saying is you can't go back in time, but that somehow you could outrace a photon. And therefore you could show up somewhere before the image of you leaving got there. You know, so what? You're not changing time. You're just moving to a place without wasting much time. But that's all you can ever do. You can never get there. You can get somewhere, okay, a second later. You could travel a zillion light years in 1 second, but it's still 1 second later where you arrive. The fact that you beat the photons, your image, you know, your photograph, so what? You know, so you get to the camera before the photons get to the camera, and you can pull out the film. Yeah, you can. So what?
Both of which are unattainable currently and maybe forever. If you are pulled more towards...
You can't go back in time. You can only go as fast as. You can go instantaneously to another location, but you can't go faster than instantaneously. So you're done. You're over. It's done. You can't go backwards in time. Too ridiculous.
A quantum mechanical interpretation of the present.
And if you went anywhere in the future, you have to do it cryogenically. You want to travel to the future? Go get frozen. And then wake up in the future. And that's it. That's the only way to get there. There's no other way to jump there. You can't jump there. You have to wait for all the years to pass, and then they wake you up.
Time travel isn't possible because the past no longer exists and the future isn't realized yet. Other theories in quantum mechanics say that time travel is possible, but on a scale of 1 or 2 particles, not large objects like us. But in truth, we don't know what time is yet. We have theories.
You say so. You don't know. You're ignorant. You don't know the real history of physics. You really don't know who Huygens was and who Leibniz was or who Newton was. And you didn't really get it. You know, and what a big fraud the Chardonnay was. Denting clay with round objects. Shit. And the physicists couldn't figure out that ain't going to work. You people don't think I can slide across thin ice. I can increase my velocity across thin ice and prevent myself from falling through the ice. You don't think that's possible because you think friction's linear and it doesn't matter how fast I'm going. I'm creating the same pressure on the ice. That's your frickin' theory, and it's stupid. And here you are doing this.
But they need to be tested and developed further. The fun of science is trying to...
Oh, the fun. There's just no fun in this at all. Correcting all this bullshit, all this wooey baby talk about reality. Yuck. Fun. Yeah, no, it's not any fucking fun.
Answer a question that no one has been able to answer before. The quantum world is an amazing...
You haven't answered any questions ever. So I could ask you, do you think it's plausibly sensible that in the 50 years we've been in space with 400 times better resolution, not 4, not 40, 400 times better resolution, and you don't need an eclipse, and yet they haven't repeated the Eddington experiment. They never even tried it in 50 years. Never even tried it. It takes 5 minutes. The experiment takes literally 5 minutes with an ordinary camera. Because you have 400 times better resolution. Obviously, you don't even need a telescope. And you think it's plausible that they've never even tried it?
Amazing one, but it is still confusing even to scientists. We are not even sure what interpretation of quantum mechanics is correct.
Interpretations of the two-slit experiment. Many worlds, Copenhagen, Brozosian, all kinds of silly theories that all involve silly crap about entanglements and photons hitting each other, which forces never do. Forces do not interact with forces. You cannot bend a force with a force. Clear, unambiguous fact in terms of the evidence. And yet you people believe it. You believe it magically happens in this stupid little circumstance with these stupid little slits, that all of a sudden a very fundamental feature of physics, where forces can't affect forces unless there's matter as a conduit, but you believe it.
You will have to watch this video if you want to know what all of these different interpretations are. And there are references for everything I discussed in the description.
Yeah, useless nonsense rubbish. References to minutia mush. Okay, just mushy, made-up crap based on a bunch of assumptions for which you have no hard evidence. Axioms for which you have no evidence. All right, you never really proved a photon is bent by light. You've never really proved that clocks, atomic clocks, always tell accurate time. You haven't proven any of this stuff. You just spout this religion and deceive the gullible. So anyway, but I am open to discussion. I'll pay you for your time, frankly, okay? I mean a fair amount for you to just answer the 4,000 questions I can create for you to answer regarding how your physics doesn't make any sense. I could explain the ballistic pendulum. You put the bullet in, it has 5,000 watts of energy. It goes into the ballistic pendulum, it loses 4,999 watts. Okay, but it conserves all the momentum, but yet lost all the energy. Magically gone. That's garbage physics. Alright, anyway. Till the next time and such, we'll see. Like I said, this was a more honest video, so I'm just sick of trying to be friendly to people who are spouting nonsense. I mean, why these people aren't doing the human race any good, talking this wooey bullshit. Humans don't need more fables. They need the frickin' truth.